Hello and welcome back to a brand new video tutorial for Armory 3D. So today let's talk about the backrooms, and it's quite trending at the moment, so we're going to make a game about it. And it's essentially going to be a maze game where you have to find the exit, or well, at least what you think would be the exit. But more about that later. For now, let's go ahead and make an FPS character controller for our backrooms game. Now, if you've seen the poll, then you would know that the score was even between the backroom game and the wall running parkour game, so we're going to make both of them, but the first one I put on was the backroom, so let's go ahead and make that directly. So let's go ahead and add in a UV sphere, and what we're going to do is create our own capsule, because in Armory, unlike Unity, you don't actually have a default capsule mesh, or what I say in Blender, because we're in Blender. Let's go ahead and activate UV so we can grab the polygons from behind and just GZ to extrude them up. Well, not extrude, but bring them up. And now we can go ahead and add our camera. So let's go ahead and add camera. And as you can see, we have our camera on an awkward little angle here. So Alt R to rotate, to zero out the rotations, and then RX to put a clean 90-degree rotation to it. And now let's move up to eye level. And there we go. Now we have a camera coming out the guy's head. We can go ahead and set the focal length to something like 30 or 20, 28, something like that. But you can see that it's engulfed the camera inside the base mesh, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and add in some scripts. So let's go ahead to the Object Data tab and go down to the Armory traits. Let's add a new logic node tree and call it controller. This is going to be used to control our mesh. So we're going to look around first of all. We're going to create the look logic. So let's go ahead and set up our workspace, and now we can go ahead and get an on update node, because we want to move the camera every single frame to wherever the mouse is moved. So if the mouse moves, then you'll be able to look around. And let's go ahead and rotate, and get the rotate node because we want to rotate the camera to look around, and set the object to be the camera. And what we want to do is we want to get the mouse movement. So let's get the mouse movement node. It's all very straightforward. But if you look at that, we have a few problems. We have a bunch of options here that can be a little confusing. But more importantly, how do we connect these weird inputs into this different input? Because that's a rotation and these are axes. So what we want to do is we want to separate the X, Y, and Z axes from this single rotation node so we can use them individually. So let's get a vector node to separate out all these axes so we can get to them individually. And that's exactly what we need for our get mouse movement node. So we can grab the multiplied X, because if you look here on top view, we have the X axis right here. So from side to side is the X axis. So let's grab the multiplied X and plug it into the Y. And that's going to allow us to look around from left to right. And what we want to do is now add a value. So let's go ahead and grab a math node. And we're going to plug this into the X. And this math node is going to be set to multiplied. Now what we want to do is essentially multiply the speeds that we're able to move with delta time. And that's going to give us a smooth result on every single device. So if you have a device at 120 frames per second, very high performance device, but that means this on update script is going to be executed 120 times every single second, making whatever the camera movement speed out to be very, very fast. Because if it's like a speed of 0.1, then it's 0.1 times 120 because it's been executed every single frame. And so it's going to be extremely fast every second. So let's go ahead and grab delta time. So get application time, that gives us the delta and the time. So let's grab the delta, plug it into the bottom of the multiply math node, and we can set this float value that we're going to multiply it by to a very small number like 0.05. And this delta and this value multiplied is going to give a smooth value on any device that you're on, whether it be 30 frames per second or 200 frames per second. It's going to give a smooth result, the same result. more importantly. And that's what we want. So let's go ahead and actually set up a basic scene so we can actually see our camera's movement, because if not, it's just going to show a grey void and there's no reference. So let's add a small ground plane. Let's bring it down to his foot. There's no physics now, so there's no worry. And let's just add some simple landmarks to be able to see where our camera's rotated. Big one and a small one, maybe a tiny one there. Okay, now we have our big landmarks. We can go ahead and tell you what, I'll just add a quick texture to our plane so it's not so bland. Set it to checkers, augment the scale to like 25 or something, and add a quick sky while we're at it so we can see a bit better. A sky texture to this one, the middle one. And we're going to augment it to 3 as well. Okay, no, enough tweaking. Let's go back to our camera. And if you go numpad 0, then you'll see that the camera is pointed inside the base mesh. And in order to be able to see the outside world, we actually have to hide this mesh. Now, in our case, this is great, because our game is quite stylized. We have only left to right camera movement. And if you want to see how to make a proper FPS game, then there's already a tutorial online by Armory Blender that shows you how to do a really optimized version of it. But if you want a much cheaper version, then you can just wait till I make my tutorial on parkour and wall running, where I'm going to talk more detail about more standard and less stylized camera controllers. So if you can wait that long, then you'll be able to see it then. But let's go ahead and hide this base mesh by unchecking it in the render, and let's go ahead and play this to see if it's all working. And as you can see, when I move my mouse, we have the movement. Yay! This is great. However, there is a small problem, and that being my mouse is still visible, so it's blocking how far I can go, because once I reach the end of the screen, I can't turn anymore. So we need to lock the mouse in the middle of the screen. And to do that, let's go ahead to our logic. Let's just bottle this all up with Control J and create a new script down here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the keyboard input and the mouse input. So the mouse input is going to lock the mouse, and the keyboard escape is going to unlock the mouse escape. And we're going to set them both to started, as soon as they're pressed. It doesn't matter whether they're long pressed or short pressed. And let's go ahead and grab the cursor, set cursor state, and we're going to plug this into the mouse and set it to be locked, and duplicate it with Shift D and plug it into the keyboard escape and uncheck it, and that's going to unlock it. So there we go. Now we can also bottle this all up by Control J. So for the movement, let's go ahead and quickly add some really basic movement. Let's grab a keyboard input. So let's grab the keyboard here and set it to be down, and we're going to grab a W and also add a translate node to translate the object, obviously. And we're going to set it to be leave it blank, because it's going to default to the base mesh. So what we want to do to move forwards is X positive, so X, Y, I meant Y positive. Let's set to this to be 0.1, and let's go ahead and duplicate it. Set this to be a negative 0.1, so it can go backwards with the S, I mean. And also zero this out now, because we want to do the X as in side to side, so X positive is a 0.1. And that is going to be the D key, as in from the move to the left, and the same thing except for the right with the A key, and just add a negative value. Okay, so this should be able to move us 0.1 in either direction. Let's go ahead and save this out and play it. Now the nodes may look complicated if you're a beginner, but they're really easy. When we click, we can lock our cursor, we can move forwards in all different directions, and we can look around. Now it is a bit of a bummer because we can't move up and down, we can only move side to side, so it sort of locks out our view, but that doesn't really matter in our case for our specific game, because it's a very stylized game. But like I said, if you want to learn more, then check Armory Blender's tutorial. It's a little bit outdated. Some of the nodes look a little different, but they're all the same usage. But I'm going to talk about it more in depth in my next game, so stay tuned for that. This game shouldn't take too long. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.